Okay, we're going to talk about composition of functions. If I start off with a function, we know that there are two things involved in defining a function. One of them is what we call the rule of assignment. So it tells you how to assign a number or an object with an input. So for example, this function right here says that if I have an input, I'm supposed to multiply it by 2 and then subtract 5, regardless of what it is. So for example, g of 2 would be 2 times 2 minus 5, that's minus 1. Also connected to a function is what we call the domain of the function. We're not going to worry about that right now. That's the set of all inputs. I'm just going to leave it like this. What you're allowing as inputs or what's determined to be input. Now what happens with functions is if I have a couple of functions, I can always define new functions from those functions. So for example, if I had another function f that had this rule of assignment to square and add 3, then these two functions f and g could give me a whole bunch of new functions. So for example, here's one that's sort of a straightforward one, the f plus g function. So what is its rule of assignment? It's actually quite easy. You just add the rules of assignments. So you get an input, and you'll see what f does to the input and g does to the input, and you add the results up. So here you'd have x squared plus 3 and 2x minus 5, and you can simplify that to x squared plus 2x minus 2. So there's a new function, the f plus g function, gotten from f and g. Now, one particular combination is that of composition, and I'm going to try to go to the next page here. So for example, with those two functions, with the two functions I was mentioning, we had, on the other page, on the other slide, was g of x was 2x minus 5. Composition is going to be applying one function after another. So for example, if I said f circle g, this is a composition that starts off with g and ends up with f. So it seems a little backwards, but this is how it's defined. So here's the rule of assignment. We have to tell you what the new rule of assignment is. And it seems like we're not doing much here, but we are actually saying quite a bit. This is saying that first g of x is used, then f of x is used. So what happens here is your input is still x, and then the first time it comes in, g of x is going to take that input and multiply by 2 and subtract 5, and that will be what is now the input to f. F takes whatever it's given and squares it. Remember, those placeholder ideas are simply that I take the input and square it and add 3. If I look back at what f does. So that's what composition is. It's a sequence of function applications, and you can sort of think of it this way. You have the x coming in. If you think of it as a program, first g is going to say, okay, what you're going to do now is the output here will be 2x minus 5. That'll be the input to f, and f then simply squares whatever it's given and adds 3 to it, and that'll be its output. So it's really the idea of a sequence of functions, one after the other. Now you can see that if I change the order, I'll get probably a very different function.